In this video, I'm going to show you how to send an email using the app router and server actions. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is send an email using the app router. I already have a project structure here with the latest versions of Next and React. And I also created a API route that if I call this endpoint, I will just return a JSON saying hello world. So let's do that. Let's run this locally and see if that works. So I'm going to localhost 3000. I get the 404 page because I don't have anything that's expected. And if I go to /API/send, I get my hello world. So that's great. This is all we need to get started. I'm going to install the recent package. And once I have the recent package, I can already start sending emails. So I'm going to import this package now. And what I'm going to do is just, create a new instance of that. And I'm going to need an API key. So I'll put that inside an environment variable. But we need to define that variable now. So let's head over to resend. And we're going to navigate to API keys. I'm going to create one called Next.14. And don't worry, I'm going to delete this API key right after the video. And I'm going to just add a new .m file. And I'm going to declare that environment variable. So this is all I need to instantiate resend. And the next thing we're going to do is, just send an email. So we have this await resend.emails.send, and there are a couple parameters that we can use here. The from address, this can be anything we want. I'm going to call it like next@mydomain.com. I'm going to send this over to my work email, the subject. Okay, this is great. And the HTML is going to be like h1 hello from Next.js. And what I'm going to do is I want to return whatever comes out of this, which should be an ID of the email that was sent. So let's see if this is going to work now. Okay, let's go to that same endpoint. And there you go. Boom, the email was sent. I got an ID. So now I can go to my Gmail and the email is here. Hello from Next.js. And that's great. We have an email. But how can we make this email better? How can we use something that feels more real? And email is tricky, right? Like you need to use tables and archaic HTML. So that's why we created React Email. So when you go there, there are a lot of examples that you can just, get started with. And the one I'm going to use is the GitHub one. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing. And all I need to do is create a new folder here called components. And I'm just going to paste this whole thing here. So there you go. You'll notice that we have a couple things here. One of them is the React email components dependency that we need to install. So let's do that. And the other thing is this base URL here. This is just like the path for the images. So let me just make sure this is not going to break by defining the right path here, which is basically like this demo app here. So we have the base URL, we have React email components installed, and all I can do is just import that whole email template, which is called GitHub Access Token email. And I can now use that template. And because Resend and React email, are built by the same team, we have like a few nice things you can do, like just import, like using the React component. And I can even, use the different, things here, like just change the username and pass variables to this component. And this is all, powered by TypeScript, and we can ensure that our types are gonna work well here. So I'm going to run this now, and let's see what happens. Boom, the email was sent. We can go to Gmail, and let's see what's gonna show up over here. There you go. Here's my email that I just sent. And this is using React email behind the scenes, and I can build my whole template using React instead of archaic HTML. That's beautiful. I love it. Now let's see how to send an email using server actions. If you're not familiar with server actions, this is a new paradigm in Next.js, which allows you to run server code without having a separate API endpoint that you call from your client. You can have both your server code and your client code in the same place. So let's see how that works. So before, you had to create this API endpoint that you would then call it and run this function on the server. And that's required because you don't want to leak your resend API key, for example. So it's really important that this lives on the server and not on the client. But things are a little bit different now with server actions. Let's see how that will work. So I'm going to go ahead and create an index page here for us. And inside this page, what I'm going to do is just return a form, which will then have a submit button. And over here, all this is going to do is just send an email. Once I click this button, I want it to send an email. So I'm already running the server locally here, and here we go. This is how the app looks like. I have my send email button right here. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is, thanks Next for creating the layout file already. And now I can start adding my server action function. I'm going to create a function called send. And all this is going to do first is just do a console.log saying hello world. And to call this function, I'm going to specify it here on my action parameter. And to be able to run this function on the server, all I have to do is just define this annotation here called use server. So I'm going to run this, and let's see what happens. I have my Next server running, and if I click this button here, we're not going to see anything on my browser DevTools because that console.log is not running on the client. That's only running on the server. And that's why we see it here. And that's the beauty of server actions. So we can now just, pretty much copy that same code we wrote before for our email, and we can add it here. So we can bring all these things here, like the recent API key, which is private and shouldn't be accessible on the client side. we can bring, our template, um, which we're gonna import here, and we can also just import, resend, and then do a console.log on the response here. So if I submit this form, now what's going to do is it's going to send an email on the server. It returned the ID of that email for me. And if I go to Gmail now, and here's the email. So I hope this was helpful to understand a little bit more about the differences between the app router and server actions. And yeah, see you next time.